We're going to jump right in. I want to go down the line and ask each of these guys what the company does and how they're involved in this world of investing in, with, for, and by creators. So, Matt, I'm going to start with you. What is Little Monster?
Little Monster. Hello? Yeah, there we go. Little Monster is our agency. We started about 7 years ago to help media brands scale their audiences on YouTube. And that was actually our very first acquisition the day we launched Electric Monster, which acquires and scales up digital video properties, mainly focusing on YouTube as like the primary outlet and distribution point.
Yeah, so what's your thesis on the roll-ups at Electric Monster?
Our thesis is essentially to find channels and outlets that are producing content in a repeatable format in a advertiser-friendly or desirable vertical. And then to either work with the founders or build a team around that to build them into, fully developed media brands.
Are you buying out the whole company?
It depends. The majority of our acquisitions to date have been full buyouts, but we do have some of the original founders retaining economic interests in the brands that have been sold.
So I know you bought React. So we were talking about this earlier. Those of you who are here with Mark, who was at React for a while, but I know you bought the React guys and have been doing things with that. Talk a little bit about that acquisition and some of the others that are public.
Yeah. So we purchased the former Fine Brothers Entertainment channels, which were rebranded prior to our acquisition into React and People vs. Food. That was mid-pandemic, and those channels got hit really hard by way of viewership because they create a tremendous amount of content along with some other issues. And so kind of our first thing to do there was to kind of reestablish the voice of the brand and extend the reach of the channels by really investing into the people and the team and the content to get it back up on its feet and growing again. And so we've been able to double viewership from about 12 million monthly to 27 on YouTube, just on one of the channels, and have extended the brand into a couple of other verticals as well. And so been really, really happy with the results that we're seeing there and still have a lot more to go. By way of our other acquisitions, the biggest one is a channel called Kids Learning Tube, or KLT. And with that, it's a science educational songs for kids channels. And we've extended that brand into very specific interest areas for that brand because they were making songs about science and math and a whole bunch of other things. And so we said, well, what are the top most interesting areas? And it was space, geography, and anatomy. So we spun out additional channels for that brand to extend into additional verticals.
Do you have a sense of how many deals you'll do in a year, or is it just when it comes, we do it?
Most of our acquisitions were done in 21. We spent most of 22 hunkering down for rate hikes, and the seizing up of capital markets. And then 23 was kind of a big turnaround year for the main asset in our portfolio, which was the React brands. I think we're looking to do probably one or two acquisitions this year, and really focus on, scale media brands that we can add a lot of value to in terms of additional business lines and know-how.
Cool. I should have done this before. I'm sorry. And to the camera people, I'm really sorry. Take your badges off. We are being videotaped. We look much better without our badges on. Can you believe it? All right. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to move it over to you. Todd, tell me what the London Fund is.
So we've been venture capitalists for the last 21 years. And about 4 years ago, we decided that most of the money that we were raising and then giving to people in anything that was B2B or B2C was basically going to Zuckerberg. So we kind of said
that was a problem.
That was a problem. I kind of felt that, we were doing all this work and the creators and the people that were generating all the traffic and the views weren't really seeing net returns. In fact, if they wanted to make any kind of equity play or equity money, which would be sort of the big numbers, they were making about 15 to 20 cents on the dollar net of all their taxes and fees. We figured out a way for them to contribute their voice, and essentially become limited partners inside our fund with no cash. And we pulled together about 500 million followers and, creators who have between 1 million and 20 million followers. And they, in essence, are full on equity partners. Then they speak their voice about our portfolio companies.
Yeah, and then they become brand advocates.
They're brand advocates with their owners, right? No hashtag ad.
So how do you work with these creators? You bring them in? Do they become part of your fund? Do they become LPs? How does that work?
So they become LPs. They, in essence, will commit, let's say, they get somewhere between 20 and 50 cents a follower for, their credit value. So if you've got 1 million followers, you can have like almost $500,000 worth of LP investment. And you're getting that straight at the top. So you would do very well. You could have millions, and that comes into the fund. And as we make our normal investment decisions, just like we would when we were investing hard cash, you get an entire portfolio, and you get to see it grow. In fact, we get real-time data on all of our investments, even though they're private.
So what's the general thesis out there for doing new things? Are you looking for companies and then creators to bring in, or creators and then companies to match what they do?
Both. So we're always looking for people who are investors who are tired of fueling companies with media spend coming through their hard cash. We'd rather find a way to get new companies that we love and that you guys are excited about, and pull them into our portfolio. And at the same time, and we'll do Series A through C, even pre-IPO, and we will look for creators who are kind of bought their Lambo and their Birkin bag, and now they want some wealth.
Right.
And we'll let them come on board.
Yeah, so really helping with creator longevity at that point. It's like, look, we're going to do this, but we're also going to give you something that isn't just cash up front, but it's equity in a growing business that could actually, you could live off of that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, our target is somewhere between sort of 3 and 5x. So if you can imagine, you sort of do the quick math, 20 million followers, you're like $45 million up. So
sounds good. Do you talk about publicly the companies that you work with or the creators that you work with?
So the creators, we don't quite expose the entire network at once, because they're all working very closely together, through the software system we've built. There's a lot of tech underneath to coordinate how different individuals speak and when and how they create an impact. But we do talk about the companies. I mean, we have a dating app, just to give an example, that never spent a single penny outside of working through us, and men can't get on unless a woman endorses them. So it's called Hula. Little pitch for her. And Heather Hopkins, who created it, realized you need $3, $4, $5 million even before she could get going, and a lot of folks were saying no, and we said absolutely, and she's now over 230,000 downloads. She's growing sort of exponentially and starting to make money.
And the creators who are involved are all very happy, and they're promoting.
They're up to right? they're up almost 250%.
Wow.
243.
Wow. So what's the time horizon you work with on companies and with creators? Is it forever? Is it 5 years? How do you think about that? So
they commit sort of over, 20 posts a year. They could commit more. 30 posts a year. They could commit more, but it doesn't matter if they speak about, for example, the dating app. They still have a piece of it. So they get a portfolio effect, which is great. If they're not in the same sector, but they commit for about 3 years, and during that time frame, they get called upon to speak or endorse or have a conversation, which is the way we think about it, about the companies.
Cool. Gigastar. Let's move on to you, Armand. Talk about Gigastar. Tell me what you guys are doing and how you're working in this world of providing cash to creators, because you have a unique take as well.
Yeah, awesome. So Gigastar is a platform that connects creators with investors. Typically, what creators do is they give away a percentage of future earnings over to investors. And what that allows them to do is partake in the overall growth of creators' channels. So typically how that works, I'll give you an example. Let's say a creator has a channel that made $100,000 over the past 12 months in AdSense revenue. For whatever reason, they're looking to raise $50,000, hire a team, pay off loans. That's just what their target is, right? So typically what we would do, just like you do to any traditional startup, you assign a multiplier, in this case, a 5x. What that gives that channel is a $500,000 future valuation, which is transparent over to investors. And that gives you that $50,000 target raise goal. So if you're giving up 10% of your future earnings, that's what your minimum raise goal is going to be. And it doesn't just stop at that 50,000. You know, we've had creators that have come on board and had a minimum target they were looking to hit and superseded that, you know, beyond 500%. So that's Gigastar in a nutshell.
So wait, let me see if I understand this. So as a creator, I say I'm going to give up 10%, 50K, right?
Right.
Who's going to invest? Who do you go out and then get to buy that pieces of that 50K? Is it like 50 people to $1,000? Is it one person at 50,000? Like, how do you think about that?
So we have an existing network of 12,000 plus investors that are ready to go already. And if a creator does it the right way in terms of promotions, right? They go on their YouTube channel, like, hey, I'm doing this listing. They bring their audience along for the ride. So that network or that network base of investors is just primed to expand.
So wait, I'm a super fan of a YouTuber and decides to do this. I can give them $1,000 and invest in it and then get a portion of their earnings over time?
Month over month.
Wow. So is this a way for creators to bind their fans to them? Is it a way for the fans to invest in their favorite creators? And is that sort of what's going on here?
Yeah, it's a two-way street. You're bringing your audience along for the ride, and if you believe enough in a channel, you have the opportunity to invest. It's kind of like the easiest, most low-hanging fruit example that I have is imagine you were able to tap into Mr. Beast's channel back in 2011, right? Would you put $1,000 on it? Would you put $100 on it? Show of hands. There we go.
Yeah. So this happens. Is it professional investors and fans, or is it just fans, or like, how do you think about that?
Anybody can be an investor. We have a network of, you know, sophisticated investors, fans that have done other drops with us. And that network base is only going to expand, right? The more creators come on board, you bring your audience along for the ride. That's going to be a very diverse range of investors that we're bringing onto the platform.
Yeah. And so if you're giving up 10% of your AdSense, is that 10% of your AdSense forever?
Yeah. So it's in perpetuity. What you make off of a raise typically lasts between 6 to 8 weeks. So from the start, the life cycle is from the start of a raise all the way through the end. What you're able to raise, the creator takes away every penny. There's no control over your channel. There's no paybacks, but that channel sits in perpetuity because you have investors involved, right? And they have to hold for at least a year to then unlock the secondary market. So similar to how like a Robinhood works, every purchase or sale that takes place within the secondary market, that transaction fee is allocated then to the creator. So that's why it has to sit in perpetuity for the secondary market to exist.
So I'm a fan. I spend $1,000. I get, it's my math, 2% of that 50K, forever, right?
Yep.
But what happens if the creator decides they want to buy it all back? Can they buy it all back and be like, you know what? I believe in myself now. I got money.
Yep.
After a year, they can just buy it on an open market?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
You can definitely tap back in as a creator that's on a listing with us and buy back all your shares.
Okay, so talk about where are you in the market of how many creators have you worked with? How many will you work with in a year? What does that look like?
So we've worked with about 10. We've had 10 drops so far. Our best example would be Brian Kim. I think I touched on that a little bit, clear value tax, but really we don't really have a range of how many, you know, to put a limit on it. We really just want to make this the hub of fundraising for creators, right? It's first of its kind. So the more the merrier, really. That's the.
Is it U.S. only? Is it approved by the SEC and all those little things?
We are SEC and FINRA regulated. Yes.
Right. Cool. So, let's talk a little bit about, what makes creators and creator businesses so important today. Why are we even talking about investing in creators, buying creators, working with creators to, you know, help them invest? What's the value of creator businesses today, and how's that different of the past? I guess I'm going to start with you, Matt. Talk about that, 'cause you've been in the creator economy for a long time. You've built your own stuff. You've helped creators. Why is now the right time to build businesses like this?
I think primarily because it's really kind of gaining broader legitimacy within the economy. When you've got Goldman coming out and saying this is a $500 billion industry by 27, that starts to cause a lot of people's heads to pop up and take interest in what I think, we've known for, at least 2 decades now, is a real thing and a real growing thing. And then you start to look at the business models in this space, specifically in like IP creation, video creation, these are real sizable businesses now. And yeah, you can, use Jimmy for about an example of just about everything. But even if we exclude him, there's quite a few examples that we can point to of like very sizable real businesses, right? You look at the Lunar X Theorist transaction. That is a very real business with multiple business lines, and has been a real business for years and years and years and years, right? You can look at the Mythical folks and what they're doing. These are sizable businesses employing, sometimes hundreds of people to operate these outlets and these brands, and generate, revenue, not just off of social video, but off of, merch, off of licensing, off of syndication, live events, and then those creators go on and those brands go on and invest in new brands like, Chamberlain Coffee and, what's the Mythical cereal? It's the dual
Some
cereal.
sweet cereal,
Yeah.
little circles or something like that. Yeah. Alex, how do you think about it? Why now for what you're doing? I haven't really heard of anybody really doing that in the past. Like, what is it? The creators are more sophisticated, or are there other reasons? You're sort of like an inverse influencer marketing agency.
Yeah, I mean, there are two big things. First of all, people should realize that influencers have built celebrities, and I think the reality is when you think of it in that way, they're really putting a tiny, tiny drop in the ocean what media and marketing looks like. Some numbers I think that are interesting. There's close to $910 billion spent on marketing / media buy in a year. 25 billion is what's spent, 2.6% spent basically on just the creator, celebrities, endorsements, right? I always give an example, just to give you an idea. Clooney did $40 million for Nespresso, and they spent $3 billion buying media channel activity. When you look at today, we can now figure out how to aggregate all of these individuals, or as many of the major ones, into a sort of almost collective. That collective, to start a fund one, is somewhere between $300 and $500 million worth of power. But why today? The technology to do it is very, very complicated because underneath it's all on chain. Underneath we've got to track everyone's K1. We've got to be compliant. We've got to make sure that all the micro are tracked. And in order
Put up close to your mouth.
and in order to make sure that you can do that, it took a long time. And we have some incredible amount of technologists behind the scenes. But I think you're just going to see this more and more because they're disintermediating all of the players that you would otherwise go to. There's no need for those folks.
Yeah, and Armand, on your side, we had, a couple of years ago as Web3 was in its peak, there was Rally that allowed you to buy coins and creators. There was BitClout and others. What's gotten you to this point today, and why now rather than maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt touched on this, right? Like there's a huge appetite for YouTube and just the creator economy overall. We're valued at $250 billion, projected to be at $500 billion by 2027. You're seeing news make waves with Dude Perfect raising $100 million. So there is an appetite for it. And we're coming in at sort of this perfect storm where, I've been part of the MCN model. My first boss, Ronit, is over there from Fullscreen. So give her a shout out.
Hey, Ronit, he'll be on stage later.
But that evolved over to, more of the loans business, right? Jelly Smacks of the world, the Spotters of the world. And we're not in the loans business at all. We're not taking any control over your channel. This is no rev share, no, 50-50 takeover. This is all you. So investors obviously identify the opportunity here, and, it's a way to, like I said, bring the audience along for the ride if you're a creator.
Each of you are building different businesses, but it's all based on the power of creators. What do you see as the potential outcome? I mean, if you think about it, Matt, as you bring more people in and build a big company, are you going to become another MCN? Are you going to become another owned and operated?
No.
Say no. I had to ask.
No, I don't see this as a MCN at all. I think MCNs were, generally considered exploitative, middlemen, right?
You weren't that bad.
Some of them were. You guys weren't. Rev 3 was awesome. The ones that gave the industry the bad rap, right? We see ourselves as just a studio, a digital studio, right? And the mediums with which we distribute our content, we just happen to distribute them digitally first. Whereas, if you think about the Warner Brothers and Disneys and what have you of the world, they distribute via linear first or via theatrical first, or I guess now via streaming first sometimes. And so we just look at ourselves as a part of that overall content consumption, economy across the board as one large pie. And so, ideally, as we grow and acquire more assets or develop them ourselves, we're just a studio that makes content, and hopefully we have expertise across all different types of content, be that, a quote unquote YouTube video, right? Or a linear streaming or a feature film or a podcast or a book or an Instagram post.
So Alex, from your side, a lot of money potential there. I mean, how many LPs do you think of creators do you think you can have? But as people build brands with creators, which we talk about all the time as one of the big things that's going on, and that creators should be building brands for themselves or getting equity and being aligned. How big does it get? Do you become, multi-billions and billions or do you sell to another venture firm, or like what's the outcome on your side?
So we've actually built a platform that we believe can scale to many, many $billion. And the rationale is, look, I've managed multi-billion-dollar funds in the past, so the bar is high already. The interesting thing is that the assets we can take aren't just creator voices. So creator voices are one of them. Those LPs can be brought in right now. Let's say there's 200 or so in there with a lot of clout. We can add globally more creators, but we could also add the Warner Brothers. We could add the Paramounts. We could add the other players in to bring their unused media. A lot of the other folks that you might see out here at the show saying, okay, I've got ad space, I've got AVOD, I've got FAST. What happens with that stuff that we want to add into it? We see that as inventory that can be transformed again back into this currency. And we're not talking about crypto. We're talking about just a swappable point system, if you want to think of it that way.
Yep. Right?
It's like,
yeah, I just imagine like apparently like we were going to get equity for our ads. How does that work? But anyway,
you'd be surprised actually.
Yeah, really? Okay.
It's happening right now.
All right, cool. Nice. I look, I was never on that side of the business. So Armand, what about you? If you think about it, like how many, like if you get, let's say you get to 10,000 creators in there, you've got all these, investors and fans that become a self-sustaining marketplace. Do you start building secondary properties on top of it? Do we see a professional investor class come in? Are you thinking about that sort of outcome?
We're not quite there yet. We're very much focused on the YouTube side of things. So just AdSense revenue giveaway to investors. But we do obviously see this, at some point becoming the hub and synonymous with investing in YouTube channels. And Gigastar has big aspirations. So, a little bit up my pay grade to, comment on anything in the future, but surely, we definitely want to, I want to make this the wheelhouse of the YouTube economy. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alex. Just jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say that, we could actually do a deal, because the interesting thing is these creators now have equity assets that we could turn and give to you guys and say, hey, you want to buy? It was something we were talking about. Could others buy into the cloud of value created by creators? So whether it's their YouTube channel or their portfolio that they have, because let's say they've come through us, all of that sort of fits into a structure. And what we're realizing, all that disintermediates your venture capitalists in the middle, disintermediates a lot of the big players. So the disruptions.
If you guys end up doing this, do I get a finder's fee?
Funny enough, you should say that. But that's one of the big things we did in our system is we built all smart contracts so that all the people that introduce people to each other, we could track all the micro payment structures back to you, and something you can't do in any other regulated market because the way we operate, we don't actually cross into FINRA SEC locations. So if you were raising money, you need to be licensed, but if you do the intro, we can probably work something out.
I wasn't asking for that, but you've already introduced now, so yeah.
There's a there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the market in general for investing in creators, helping creators to build revenue, build equity, build that. You guys are all early movers in the space, but it looks like big money is coming in. How do you see this environment of investing in and with creators playing out over the next 3 to 5 years? Alex, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I mean, we just raised on the platform itself in our seed round, we just raised over $20 million. Just the people who believe in us. And the backers, that have already come in, I mean, we've already deployed over $50 million worth of investments. We expect to do another 25 deals, probably close to 200 million this year. That's pretty substantial amount of deployment very quickly. We think that the larger players will realize that they continue to find areas where their brands that they're investing in will face friction because they just can't buy enough ad space, and it just doesn't work anymore, right? You can't stalk someone on Facebook using sort of the algorithms that they used to have. So now you need to get authentic conversations.
What do you think, Matt? You've seen competitors start to come in. I mean, you mentioned the Electrify guys and some of the others. I mean, how do you see that going? And is there more competition for the folks that you've been looking at today or tomorrow?
To some extent, I think we're going to see more kind of one-offs in kind of what seems to be the company that invested in Dude Perfect, where there's a particular strategic advantage to acquiring an outlet or a brand like that or investing in a brand like that. Roll-ups are difficult to do, right? There's a lot of operational aspects to it. So we haven't seen any significant new roll-ups really emerge. And honestly, I think we're 5 to 10 years before we're talking, Maker Disney level of funding coming in just because of the scale of where the majority of the quote unquote creator economy is, where it's very difficult to invest into a celebrity directly and to understand what the worth of that is or not. And there's a limited set of like brands and formats in the digital space that it would make sense to do an acquisition like that. In the sense of them having enough scale to make it interesting to a private equity firm of that scale. And then on the VC side, we saw that wave kind of crest again, I think 21, 22, and it's been on a downward trend pretty significantly since then. I don't know if that's beginning to open up, but it does seem like there's a lot more capital interest in what we're doing, March, February of this year. So hopefully, with the stabilizing of, capital markets and interest rates, things really begin to open up here. And, we don't create a huge bubble, but it would be nice to have easier conversations.
Yeah, right. Armand, what do you think? I mean, you also a first mover, in success. It seems other people will jump in. Are there big moats to your business, or is this something that, well, there could be 1 million people doing this down the road?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it definitely within our business. We had a $3 million raise early February. The money coming in, obviously investors do identify the opportunity that we have using our platform. And as YouTube continues to grow, it's only going to make a stronger case for us and obviously get us to where we want to be.
Yeah. Alex, I want to talk a little bit about trust and creators. And I'm struck by Marquise Brownlee becoming a chief whatever officer at Ridge. He's reviewing products. Now he is basically a chief content or whatever officer at Ridge. You're bringing in creators who are equity owners in these companies, and you're setting that up, but then they're also talking about their companies. Is there a trust issue? How do you make sure that their fans trust them when they're talking about something that they own equity in, and do they disclose that?
They have to, right? I mean, the advantage of being an owner is you don't have to do it every 5 minutes, right? You don't see Kylie putting hashtag ad every time she says, hey, buy some lipstick, or hashtag ad, this is my Cybertruck. And I think we kind of get it that they're owners, they're investors. I think what people have never really seen is a way of having professional investment sort of backbones and actions, resulting to people having things that are they may be a bit more passive in, right? They don't have to be just going in and saying, oh, please buy this drink or buy this makeup or buy this car. They are having conversations. And one of the things that we specialize in is how to make sure that the coordination of all these conversations that our LPs are having is done in a very both trustworthy but natural way, right? It's sort of like, hey, look, I've got some great advisors. They've put me into this company. You should probably hear about it. And we're hoping that creates a little bit of an echo as well.
Yeah, quick question for you. Do you see creators having equity stakes in multiple companies?
Well, in our case, they're having equity stakes in all the companies, right? So
it's the whole portfolio.
It's a whole portfolio. So the beauty is, let's say that, if you went in, years ago, Emily Ratajkowski was trying to the deal with us at a cannabis company in California. And that's one bet, right? She could have done just that one deal. If it went well, fantastic. If it did terribly, that's it. It's a pretty big risk. And I always say, look, you don't see me out there posing, and I'm not an influencer. Why are marketing and influencers trying to be venture capitalists? So,
because it's easy. Come on. It's simple to be a VC.
absolutely.
I know it's not. Armand, a little bit of the downside I saw in your model. What happens if creator sells 10% of their business, 10% of their future revenue, and then 6 months later they burn out and be like, I'm done. I'm going to go be a shepherd.
They just stop making money, right? If you don't post, if your performance isn't there, then you're not going to make money. Investors aren't going to make money. And that's obviously going to upset the people that we have in our investor base. So it's obviously to their benefit to keep on posting, but these things do happen. Everybody, at some point does run into burnout. So those are real issues.
Yeah, we know how cancel culture works. You know that that's going to be an issue, I'm sure,
exactly.
Right? So I want to, as we lean into the last couple minutes here, I'm going to riff on something on that you wrote, Matt, about important attributes for creators to be acquired, to be part of this, to be considered. And I want to quickly go through for each of you guys how important these things are. So we'll do a quick roundtable. Trying to spend too many words on it. Let's start off with format. What the format of a creator? How important is a creator format for what you're looking for?
For us, extremely. That's the number one thing. That's a deal breaker for us. Like if it's just, random videos doing what they want from time to time, going on adventure journeys, whatever they're doing, like we can't do anything with that, right? That's someone who wants to be famous. That's a celebrity. That's great. Love it. Would love to work with them. Can't acquire it.
Not for you. How about the format for you, Alex?
We need all the different folks from all different media types, from LinkedIn to TikTok, and scale that matters. Can they deliver to a larger audience?
Yep. And format for you, Armand, it's YouTube only, right?
Yeah. Format is super important. You want to target those channels that do have the higher volume CPMs. They're longer form. They have a sophisticated audience, right? Business, finance channels. If you miss a beat from that programming, then really that viewership experience goes to waste. So the higher that CPM value is on these channels and the longer the format, it only works to the benefit of both the creators and the investors.
How important is it for a creator to have multiple revenue streams? Alex, I'll start with you.
I think these creators need to realize that there is a finite period in which you can do this, and we're hoping that we're kind of like their pension plan. So
right.
It's like the 401k for influencers.
So multiple revenue streams, you're only actually giving people a piece of AdSense on YouTube, not, I'm launching a new product. You'll get some of that, right? So
solely AdSense revenue, no partnerships dollars, nothing on the outside.
You don't care about multiple revenue streams. How important are multiple revenue streams to you?
For us, there's pros and cons to whether they have just one or many. If you have many, then there's less opportunity for us to scale the business. However, at the same time, it makes it a much more secure business.
Right. Makes sense. All right. I'm going to start with you on this one. Single talent, single creator, or an ensemble?
To us, the more key man risk, the less attractive of an asset, but not something that we're afraid of taking on and working with the creator with if they have a repeatable format and show that they work on.
Alex, what about you? Will you go where there's like 5 people there building something like Dude Perfect, or is it just a single?
Doesn't matter to us because we think of the entire fabric across all our creators. So one of them can Kanye and we're still okay.
Single talent or ensemble?
Either or work for us.
Doesn't matter. How about the strength of brand, Alex? How important is the strength of brand?
I think the brand that we get involved in has to be strong enough to handle the flow of sort of traffic that's going to get pointed at them. I think we crashed one of the first brands that we did. We took them to 14 on the App Store in one day.
Strength of brand, Armand?
I mean, as long as they have their barrier to entry, is creator at least having made 30K over the past 12 months in AdSense revenue. So they're not always going to be quite there yet in terms of strength of brand, but we definitely do serve as that vehicle to get them to that place.
Strength of brand?
Highly sought after, not a deal breaker.
Yep. Okay. Armand, for you, brand safety. How important is their brand safety in this?
Super important, right? Like there's obviously going to be areas where YouTube gets involved and, say a channel goes down, right? That's going to really piss off a lot of our investors. So we always want to go for those channels that are presented in the best light.
Same thing. They have to be adherent.
Yep. Here, how about you?
I would like to say it's a top concern, but we did just release a video called Boob Trivia the other day. I'm in this industry in part because I don't like gatekeepers and I don't like being told what I can and can't do. So it is a concern, but also at the same time, we're willing to make exceptions.
All right. Last but not least, here you are. You've got a bunch of people who are creators in the creator economy business. You guys are open for business. How do they get in touch with you? And can you stick around and chat with people a little bit?
You can just find me on LinkedIn, Matt Gielen, Gielen. It's probably the best route to go.
Cool.
Probably find me on LinkedIn. It's just Alex, S-H-A-H.
Yep.
And what about you, Armand and Gigastar?
Same with me. You can find me on LinkedIn, Armand Galustian, and I'll be sticking around here. So if you guys want to come up and have a chat, let's do it.
All right. Matt, Alex, Armand, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Round of applause for them. You can leave your mics on the chair.